Ever get that like kind of creepy feeling like you're being like nudged into thoughts or actions that aren't really yours? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
know exactly what you mean.
Today, we're going deep, deep into the world of mind control and persuasion,
Oh, wow.
exploring the methods, the effects, even defenses
Right.
against manipulation. We've got this fascinating book,
Okay.
Mind Control, Manipulation, Deception, and Persuasion Exposed.
Sounds intense.
It's really a fascinating read. This is going to be our guide for today's deep dive.
Okay, perfect.
And turns out mind control isn't just, like sci-fi movies or shadowy cults.
Right.
It's way more common than I think any of us realize.
I bet, yeah.
So get ready for some unsettling
Okay.
but empowering insights today.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Okay, so how exactly do these like master manipulators operate?
Right.
What are the techniques that they use? And the big one, the most important one, is how can we protect ourselves?
Exactly. The $1,000,000 question.
Right. So first off, I think we have to kind of get clear on some definitions.
Okay, sure.
So mind control and brainwashing, are those the same thing?
That's a good point. They are often used interchangeably, but this book actually does a really good job of clarifying the distinction
Okay.
using this powerful historical example from the Korean War.
Right. Okay.
So think about those American POWs. They were, subjected to really intense psychological pressure.
Oh, yeah.
And out of 20,000 POWs, only 21 ended up actually defecting.
Wow.
And some of those were even coerced into making false confessions about waging biological warfare.
Really? Why?
Yeah. And so this, this kind of illustrates the brute force of brainwashing. Like the goal is to just shatter someone's beliefs and replace them
Right.
just completely through coercion.
Okay.
Mind control is more subtle.
Right. Okay.
It's more about manipulation and persuasion, influencing your thoughts and actions without you even realizing you're being played.
That is really kind of scary because it's so subtle. Right.
Right. Yes.
It makes you wonder, if someone's been under mind control, can they snap out of it?
Right. Can they be deprogrammed, as they say?
Right. Is there like a way back from that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the book really tackles this head on.
Okay.
And it turns out that reversibility really depends on how intense and how long the manipulation has been going on.
Okay.
There's this really gripping story
Okay.
in the book about a woman who managed to escape an abusive relationship after like 6 years,
Wow.
6 long years. And so, she finally reaches the door
Okay.
with her kids, thinking she's free. But when she opens the door, there's her partner,
Oh, no.
sword in hand.
Wow.
Just imagine the terror of that moment, and it really highlights this powerful hold that these manipulators can have.
Oh, absolutely.
They are terrified of losing control, and the scars, the psychological scars
Yeah.
that they leave on their victims can last for years.
Absolutely. And I think that story really drives home the point that this isn't just some like theoretical concept we're talking about.
Yeah,
I mean, it can have devastating consequences in the real world.
for sure.
Okay, let's step back for a second. Where else do we encounter these kinds of mind control tactics? I mean, it's got to be more than just extreme situations, right?
Right.
Like cults or abusive relationships.
Yeah, I mean, it might surprise you
Okay.
to learn how pervasive these tactics actually are. Religion, politics, marketing. I mean, they all kind of employ mind control to some extent, right?
Okay, so like when you say marketing, you're talking about like advertising and stuff.
Yes, advertising, branding.
Okay.
The book even uses the example of hairdressing.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Think about it. How often do you go in for a haircut?
Right.
And you're persuaded to get something that you maybe didn't really want,
Yeah, that happens all the time.
right?
Right, yeah. I mean, it is kind of like the book, I think, drives home this point that anyone can be a victim of this. Absolutely anyone.
Right.
Like that analogy they use. Look around any public space
Okay.
and just notice how many people are basically walking billboards
Right.
in branded clothing, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
We often participate in this kind of subtle form of mind control without even realizing it.
Yeah, that's a really good point because we are bombarded with persuasive messages
Constantly.
constantly, all the time. And I think, speaking of groups and institutions, you can't talk about mind control without the topic of cults coming up.
Right.
It's almost as if that word cult itself has become like synonymous with manipulation.
Right. But it's interesting how the original definition of cult simply meant a belief in a controlling power,
Oh, interesting.
which, if you think about it, could
Yeah.
apply to a lot of organized religions.
Wow, that's actually really thought-provoking. So how does the book apply that concept to these institutions, to religious institutions?
Well, it doesn't shy away from kind of controversial topics like, for example, the Catholic Church pedophile scandal
Right.
is, a stark illustration of how institutional authority can be used to silence victims and protect abusers.
Absolutely.
Right. And this raises some really important questions about, the misuse of power and control within institutions, regardless of what their stated beliefs or purpose might be.
It really highlights how those power dynamics like create fertile ground for this to happen.
Exactly.
So let's zoom in a bit. How do these individual manipulators actually work?
Okay.
What are the steps they take to kind of get inside our heads?
Right. So the book breaks it down into stages. And the first one is all about establishing a connection.
Okay.
Think of these manipulators as expert people readers, almost like human lie detectors. They carefully observe your body language, how you speak, your posture, all of it,
Oh, wow.
trying to identify your vulnerabilities and tailor their approach to you specifically.
So it's not a like one-size-fits-all approach.
No, not at all. They actually, they size you up.
Right.
And they craft like a personalized manipulation strategy
Yeah, it's incredible.
based on their assessment of your weaknesses.
Okay, so they've done that.
Okay.
They've identified our weaknesses. They've earned our trust. What's next?
Okay, well, this is where things get a little more insidious.
Okay.
The next stage is all about breaking down your existing belief system,
Oh, wow.
like the very foundation of who you are.
Right.
And to do this, they might isolate you from your support network. They might distort your memories,
Wow.
or even introduce like a whole new ideology that makes their view seem like the only truth.
It's almost like they're trying to erase our reality
Right. Yeah, it is.
and replace it with their own version.
Yeah, precisely. The book is like full of these chilling examples. Think about cults that restrict food
Oh, yeah.
or keep their members in these like late night sessions designed to like bypass critical thinking. They even employ like public confessions,
Right.
to strip you of your privacy, leaving you feeling exposed and vulnerable.
It's just so disturbing how calculated these tactics are.
Right.
Are there other things like little techniques they use to make us question ourselves?
Yeah. Well, here's one. It's particularly insidious.
Okay.
They often resort to subtle humiliation
Oh, wow.
and insults, to kind of plant those seeds of self-doubt.
Wow.
They want you to question your own sanity. They want you to feel like you need them to guide you
Wow.
back to the right path.
So they're chipping away at our confidence, making us dependent on them.
Exactly.
Just systematic dismantling.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've done that,
Okay.
broken us down, made us doubt ourselves.
Yeah.
What's the final stage in this process?
Right. So now that, the old beliefs are out of the way, it's time to rebuild. Rebuild and replace those beliefs with their own. And, they present themselves as the solution to all your problems, the answer to your prayers. They may even point to former members who left the group and claim that this is proof of their superiority,
Right.
It kind of solidifies their control over those who remain.
Yeah, they're like creating this whole new world where they're in control.
Yeah.
And we're completely reliant on them for, direction and validation.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying how effective these tactics can be.
It really is. And often they'll use the illusion of free will
Okay.
to solidify that control even further.
Right.
They make you believe that you're choosing this new path,
Okay.
when in reality, they've orchestrated the entire journey.
So let's shift away from those like really extreme cases.
Okay.
Like cults and abusive relationships.
Yeah.
And look at how these mind control tactics show up in everyday life.
No.
It's not all cults and abusive relationships, right?
No, not at all. You're absolutely right. Think about, even something like our education system.
Oh.
The book uses the, very chilling example of the Hitler Youth,
Right.
where education was really warped
Yeah.
into a tool for mass indoctrination.
That is a really dark, dark period of history. But how does that relate to today?
Right.
Like, are you suggesting that our modern education systems are inherently manipulative?
Not necessarily,
Nope.
but the book encourages us to be, critical thinkers
Okay.
and really examine like how certain elements within education
Right.
or other systems might subtly influence our beliefs and behaviors.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. It's about being aware of like potential biases and agendas, even in, seemingly neutral environments.
Exactly.
What about other areas where these tactics might be at play?
Well, I mean, consider the constant barrage of advertising
Oh, yeah.
and propaganda
Right.
that we're exposed to every day.
Absolutely.
They employ similar, albeit more subtle manipulation techniques
Okay.
to shape our opinions and buying habits.
Yeah, that's a great point. We are constantly being persuaded, right?
Constantly.
Whether it's, the news we consume or the products we buy.
Yep.
I mean, speaking of advertising, is subliminal advertising a thing?
It's a good question.
Like planting these hidden messages in our minds, does that actually work?
Well, the book references Vance Packard's book. It's a controversial book, but it's called The Hidden Persuaders.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
And it kind of exposed how subliminal techniques were being used in advertising.
Okay. So, like those hidden images in movies.
Right, yeah, like the popcorn and the soda.
Yeah, it's like, that was a real thing.
Whether those specific tactics were effective, is debatable.
Okay.
But I think what's undeniable
Uh.
is the power of branding
Okay.
and repetition
Yeah.
in advertising. They create these powerful associations in our minds that lead us to choose certain brands over others without even really understanding why.
That's so true. It's like we're on autopilot and we don't even realize it.
Right.
It's almost like that example we talked about earlier.
Exactly, yeah.
With people wearing those branded clothing.
Right, like walking billboards.
Yeah. Yeah. It's subtle,
Yeah,
but it's so effective.
it is.
And it really highlights how psychology
Mm-hmm.
is being used to influence our choices.
Absolutely.
Okay. But how do marketers know which emotions to target?
That's a great question.
Right. Right. It's not just like a guessing game, is it?
Well, there's definitely a method to their madness.
Okay.
The book mentions how network marketers, for example,
Okay.
they use a system
Okay.
based on 4 color-coded personality types.
Oh, interesting. Color-coded personalities. Tell me more.
Right, yeah. It's quite clever, actually.
Okay.
So, yellow represents individuals who are driven by pity
Okay.
and a desire to help others.
Okay.
Green signifies those who are very practical
Okay.
and detail-oriented.
Oh, yeah. Got it.
Blue stands for people who value familiarity
Okay.
and connection. And then finally, red symbolizes those competitive go-getter types.
Oh, so like the driven ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So by knowing someone's dominant color,
Right.
they can tailor their approach to play on their emotions.
Exactly. They'll exploit feelings like fear, guilt, or even ego, to close the deal.
Wow. It's incredible how much psychology goes into this.
Yeah.
It's all about understanding how to play those emotional buttons, right?
That's exactly right.
And it's not just limited to marketing, right?
Right. No, not all.
Just this whole idea.
Oh.
Okay, because the book delves into how these principles, can be applied to everyday life.
Absolutely.
Right, think about navigating workplace conflicts.
Exactly.
Or resolving issues in your personal relationships.
Yeah, it's not always about manipulation in a negative sense, right?
Right.
It's about using emotional intelligence
Okay.
to get what you want.
So it's being aware of the power of emotions
Mm-hmm.
and using that knowledge
That's right.
responsibly, right?
Exactly.
But okay, what about body language? Because everybody seems obsessed with decoding those nonverbal cues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Does the book touch on that at all?
Absolutely, it does. Body language is a fascinating area of study.
Yeah.
And the book explores how it can be used to, understand hidden intentions.
Okay.
It delves into the work of NLP pioneers,
Okay.
Richard Bandler and John Grinder.
Okay.
And they really focused on observing microexpressions,
Okay.
things like blushing, eye movements, or even those little, tics we all have.
Right.
And they believed that these subtle cues could reveal if someone was being deceptive or even how they process information.
That's incredible. It's like they cracked the code of human communication, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the idea.
But what did they do with that information?
Well, they use these observations to tailor their own language and behavior,
Oh.
to build trust and influence others.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding how those subtle cues can shape our perceptions
Yeah.
and using that knowledge to your advantage.
Yeah, it's like having a secret weapon.
Right.
in these social situations. Okay, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about deception.
Okay.
Where does that fit into all of this?
Well, deception is all about skillfully concealing your true intentions, right?
Yeah.
And presenting presenting a carefully crafted version of yourself to the person you're trying to influence.
Okay.
It's not necessarily like blatant lying,
Right.
but it's more about strategically managing information to achieve a desired outcome.
So it's like controlling the narrative, right?
Exactly.
And presenting a version of reality that serves their purpose.
That's right. The book breaks it down
Okay.
into two key elements: concealing the truth and presenting fiction as fact.
Can you give me like a real life example
Sure.
of when someone might do this?
Yeah, the book actually uses a couple of great examples. Imagine, you accidentally break a valuable piece of pottery
Oh.
at a friend's house.
Okay.
And instead of admitting, your fault,
Right.
you kind of weave a tale about how it was already broken
Right.
using distraction
Right.
to cover your tracks.
Right. So you're not outright lying,
Exactly.
but you're just kind of omitting.
Yeah. Or maybe, let's say you had a few too many drinks at a work function.
Okay.
And you didn't make it home that night.
Right.
And instead of confessing
Oh, okay. Yeah.
to your partner, you tell them that you slept in your car to avoid a DUI.
Oh, so you're telling a half-truth.
Exactly, right.
Right. It's brilliant. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like using these little white lies
Oh,
to smooth over these awkward situations. But isn't that still manipulation?
Well, it can be, but the book argues that there's a difference
Okay.
between like malicious deception
Okay.
and using it skillfully
Right.
to kind of navigate
Okay.
social situations.
Okay. So it's about intention and context.
Right.
But let's say, like, I want to get better at this whole deception thing.
Okay.
Is there like a deception toolbox I can use?
Yeah, the book actually outlines some helpful tools.
Okay.
The first is developing a dynamic personality.
Okay.
First impressions matter.
Yeah.
And if you project confidence
Okay.
and trustworthiness, people are less likely to suspect you of deception.
Okay. So it's all about that initial charm offensive.
Kinda. Yeah, it is.
You make them like you and they'll believe what you say.
Right.
What other tools?
Right. Okay. So the next tool is using compliments strategically.
Okay.
A well-placed,
Okay.
sincere compliment
Okay.
can really disarm people,
Yeah.
and make them more receptive to your persuasion.
It's like the classic butter 'em up approach.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
What's next? What's next in this dance of persuasion?
Right. So the third tool is building influence.
Okay.
The more influence you have, the more credible you appear.
Okay.
And the easier it is for people to kind of overlook those minor deceptions.
Yeah, give you the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they see you as someone worth listening to.
But how do you build influence? Is it about being the loudest person in the room?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
The book actually advocates for mastering the art of group conversation.
Okay.
It's about timing your contributions,
Okay.
choosing your words carefully, and influencing the flow without being overtly controlling.
Okay.
And they even provide a step-by-step guide.
Okay. I'm all ears. What's the first step?
Well, you begin by expressing gratitude
Okay.
to previous speakers.
Yeah.
This sets a positive tone, demonstrates respect for their opinions.
It's being collaborative
Exactly.
rather than confrontational.
Right.
What's next?
Okay, so instead of like launching into direct attacks,
Okay.
ask clarifying questions.
Okay.
This helps you understand their perspective and identify areas where you might find common ground.
So you gather information and you build rapport before you like put forth your view.
Exactly right.
Okay. What's
I
the
get it.
final step?
Well, once you've established that foundation
Okay.
of understanding and respect,
Okay.
then you can confidently present your viewpoint.
Okay.
And remember to be courteous, humble,
Okay.
and genuinely interested in others' perspectives, even if you disagree.
Okay. So it's about building trust and then gently steering the conversation in your direction.
Exactly.
That is really, really smart. Are there any other communication tips?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That can help, kind of become a master persuader.
Right.
The book stresses the importance of using concise language. Brevity increases impact.
Okay.
Think about it. Knowledge is power,
Right.
much more impactful.
Okay.
Then knowledge brings the bearer power.
I see your point. Yeah. The shorter version just like cuts through the noise.
Right.
and it gets straight to the heart of the matter. What about when I'm like swamped with tasks and need to delegate effectively?
Okay, good question.
Like, how does that play into this whole like influencing game?
The delegation is a crucial skill,
Okay.
not just for getting things done,
Okay.
but for empowering others
Yeah.
and building a strong team.
Right.
You know, it's not about dumping tasks on people.
Right.
It's about enabling them
Okay.
to utilize their unique talents.
Right.
To contribute their best work.
Okay, I'm on board, but how do I make sure things get done right?
Yeah.
Like without micromanaging.
Right. Well, the book lays out 3 key steps for effective delegation. The first is to clearly define the desired outcome. What's the ultimate goal?
Okay, start with a clear vision. What's next?
Okay, second.
Yeah.
Empower individuals to use their creativity
Right.
to get there. Give them that freedom to explore
Okay.
different approaches.
Right.
Come up with innovative solutions.
So it's about fostering autonomy and trust.
Exactly.
Okay, what's the final piece of the puzzle?
All right. And finally, set clear boundaries of authority and resources.
Right.
What decisions can they make independently? What budget do they have to work with?
Right.
By following these steps, you're not just delegating tasks, you're developing talent.
That's a good point, yeah.
Right?
You're creating an environment where everyone feels valued.
Exactly.
But let's circle back to manipulation for a second.
Okay, sure.
Is all manipulation inherently bad? Are there times when it can be used ethically?
It's an interesting question. The book actually argues that understanding the dynamics of manipulation
Okay.
can be a powerful tool for protecting yourself against it,
Okay.
and even using it ethically
Right.
to achieve your goals.
So it's like that old saying, knowledge is power. The more you understand about it, the better you can use it, right? Tell me more about this idea of ethical manipulation.
Okay, so they highlight 3 key principles.
Okay.
Appealing to emotions,
Yeah.
framing needs as belonging,
Okay.
and playing to ego.
Right.
You know, these are techniques that can be used for good or bad depending on the manipulator's intention.
Okay. That makes sense. It's all about using these techniques with integrity. Right.
Yeah.
But let's get practical. What are some steps I can take to protect myself?
Okay, the book, it talks about building what they call a mind defense system.
Okay.
And the first line of defense is developing an analytical mind
Okay.
that questions everything. Don't just take things at face value, right?
Right.
Question people's motives, their intentions, the information they present.
Yeah.
You know, be a little skeptical without being cynical.
So you're saying be a critical thinker.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Are there other ways to strengthen these like mental defenses?
Well, the book also emphasizes the importance of reading nonverbal communication.
Oh, okay.
You know, pay attention to body language, eye contact, tone of voice, even those subtle, energetic signals we pick up subconsciously.
Right.
The more attuned you are to these nonverbal cues, the better you'll be at spotting those inconsistencies
Okay.
between someone's words and their actions.
So we got to become our own human lie detectors, basically.
Right. Yeah. Learn to trust your gut instincts.
Yeah. But what about trust in general? I mean, we can't go through life distrusting everyone.
You're absolutely right. You can't. Trust is essential
Right.
for building healthy relationships. But the book does acknowledge that trust carries a certain amount of risk,
Right.
especially when it comes to manipulation. So their advice, speak up
Okay.
when something feels wrong.
Okay.
Pay attention to those red flags
Right.
that pop up in your gut
Right.
and cultivate your intuition.
Mm.
It's about finding that balance. We ended on that question about free will,
Right.
and it really kind of sticks with you, doesn't it? Knowing how pervasive these tactics are. It makes you wonder,
Yeah.
how can we even, spot those red flags in the first place?
Exactly. Like those subtle signs
Right.
that someone might be trying to like pull our strings.
Exactly. And it feels almost impossible, right?
It does. Yeah.
To outmaneuver someone who's so skilled
Yeah.
at deception. But the book, it does offer some really insightful advice
Right.
on how to become a better, what they call people reader.
Okay. I like that. Yeah.
And it really comes down to paying attention
Okay.
to those little inconsistencies
Right.
between someone's words and their actions.
Okay.
Those slips that reveal their true intentions.
So it's like that old saying, actions speak louder than words.
Exactly.
Like you have to look at the whole picture, right?
Right.
Not just the persona they're presenting.
Precisely. And speaking of personas, the book highlights how these manipulators are masters at creating these
Right.
these idealized versions of themselves, these facades
Yeah.
that are custom designed
Oh, wow.
to appeal to your specific needs and desires.
So they're shape-shifting, basically. Becoming whoever they need to be
Yeah.
to gain our trust and get what they want. But how can we see through that?
Yeah, how can you spot
Yeah.
the manipulator
Yeah.
hiding behind the facade?
Yeah, behind the mask.
Well, one of the biggest red flags, I think, to watch out for is a lack of genuine empathy.
Okay.
Manipulators are often so fixated
Oh.
on their own goals and agendas
Okay.
that they fail to truly connect with others
Yeah.
on an emotional level.
So even though they might like shower us with compliments or, feign concern,
Yeah.
it always feels kind of superficial,
Right.
like lacking that real warmth
Yes, exactly.
that you would find in like authentic relationships.
It's all surface level.
Right.
Charm without any real substance.
Okay.
Another telltale sign is a sense of entitlement.
Oh, okay.
Manipulators often believe that, that they deserve special treatment,
Okay.
that the rules don't apply to them.
So they're like those spoiled children
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
who throw a tantrum if they don't get their way.
Exactly.
They might guilt trip you or, play the victim
Yeah.
or even resort to threats.
It's all about control,
Right.
maintaining that position
Right.
of power.
And speaking of those manipulative tactics,
Okay.
like the book goes into detail
It does?
about some of the specific techniques
Right.
that they use to like get inside our heads
It does.
and wreak havoc.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's break it down.
Okay, sure.
What are some of those manipulative tactics and how do they work?
Okay, well, one of the most common
Okay.
and insidious tactics is what's called gaslighting.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gaslighting.
Have you heard of that?
I have heard of it, but I'm not sure I fully understand it.
Okay, yeah. So it's this psychological tactic
Okay.
where the manipulator tries to make you question
Okay.
your own sanity.
Okay.
They might deny events
Oh, wow.
that actually happened.
Okay.
They might twist your words
Okay.
or accuse you of, being overly sensitive or imagining things.
So they're basically trying to like erase your reality
Yes.
and replace it with their own version.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The goal is to make you doubt your own memories,
Right.
your perceptions,
Yeah.
create this sense of confusion and dependence.
Yeah, it must be so disorienting
It is.
for the victim. Okay, what about other tactics?
Okay, well, another one to watch out for is love bombing.
Okay. Love bombing. I've heard of this one too.
Yeah, so this is where the manipulator kind of overwhelms you
Okay.
with affection, attention, gifts, making you feel like you've found your soulmate.
It sounds too good to be true.
Yeah.
What's the catch?
Well, the catch is once they've secured your emotional investment,
Okay.
the love bombing abruptly stops.
Wow.
And they start to withdraw,
All right.
creating the sense of dependence and desperation in the victim
Yeah.
who's left craving
Right.
that initial
Yeah.
rush of affection.
It was like that push and pull.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
Right. That keeps you hooked.
It's classic.
Yeah.
They're masterfully exploiting
Right.
our need
Yeah.
for love and connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of exploiting needs, like are manipulators good at playing on our like insecurities and fears?
They're experts at it.
Okay, so like how do they go about doing that?
Well, they might, they might make you feel inadequate.
Okay.
They might threaten to abandon you
Oh, wow.
or isolate you from your support system,
Wow.
making you more reliant on them for validation
Right.
and security.
It's like this cruel, calculated strategy.
It is. It is.
Right. They're dismantling our like self-esteem
Right.
brick by brick.
It is about creating a power imbalance,
Okay.
making you feel small
Right.
and dependent
Mm-hmm.
while they inflate
Right.
their own sense of importance.
And it's important to remember that it's not just like strangers, right?
No, not at all.
This can be family, friends, colleagues.
Anyone.
Wow.
It could be anyone who seeks to control or exploit you
Right.
for their own benefit.
That is chilling.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we need to be vigilant in all our relationships.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Like setting boundaries and knowing when someone's overstepping.
Yeah.
So we've talked about spotting it.
Okay.
Right. But how do we deal with it?
Right.
Like what are some practical strategies
Yeah.
for confronting a manipulator and like protecting ourselves?
Okay. Well, the first step is simply acknowledging.
That you are being manipulated.
Okay.
It's easy to fall into denial.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
to make excuses for the manipulator's behavior or blame yourself for their actions.
It's like you're wearing those like rose-colored glasses.
Right.
Right? Refusing to see the situation for what it is. But how do we break free from that?
Right. Well, once you recognize the pattern,
Okay.
you can start to detach